Hey everybody, it's just going to be me today talking about chapter 7, which is listening. Huh? Just kidding. Okay, all right. Um, we're going to start it here. I'm sharing my screen. Here we go. All right. And there's going to be a number of videos in this one, so you'll be happy to know they're fun, and we're going to talk about each one. So here we go. First of all, we're going to start with a few questions. Do you think you're an effective listener? And we're going to go into more of what that means. But do you think that you're a good listener? All right, here's what we want you to do. Think of a person who you think is a good listener, somebody in your life. It could be a friend, a family member, any of that, and put this in your notes. And I'm going to keep going on the video here, but you can pause it if you need to, or you can take that up later and just describe that person, okay? And some of the qualities about them that you think make them a good listener in your notes. And then that will tell you, how do you know this? How do you know that those qualities about that person make you think that they're a good listener? All right. Here's maybe something surprising: the amount of time that we invest in listening. Okay, let's start with the small little pieces of the pie here. This 9% of our time is spent writing, okay, different throughout the day. 16% is spent reading. So about a quarter of our time is spent reading and writing. 30% is spent speaking. Now, where does texting fall into this? Probably in the speaking part, because you're communicating, you're using words, okay? Whether it's on paper or, through your phone or talking to somebody verbally. And the rest of it, 45%, almost half, is spent listening. But think about it. When you think about communication, what's the first thing you think of? Talking, not really listening. But listening is actually more important because we do it so much of the time. First of all, it enhances our relationship with others. Okay, I'm just going to read this real quick. A key difference between couples who remain married and those who divorce was the ability to listen to each other. That was at the top of the list. He doesn't listen to me. She doesn't listen to me. And maybe you're in relationships now with family or friends or significant others, and you feel the same way, or you're told that. We're going to look here at why you might be told that or think that about somebody else, and what could make you a good listener. Another reason listening is important is it helps us collaborate with others, to work together on things. When you are the group leader or you're even a member of a group, your ability to communicate effectively affects the productivity of the group. Think about that. If you're not listening, you are not going to be as productive as a group. I was working on something once with a friend. We were developing an online television show about competitions, and it really didn't go anywhere. But my friend would come to the meetings. There were just a few of us doing this. Come to the meetings, and we'd be like back to square one, where what we had talked about the week before and decided on and kind of worked from over the next week made no difference at all. And I'm like, were you even listening, right? So it does matter when you're collaborating on projects, very, very much. Okay, listening links the speaker and the audience, okay? If it's not just one-on-one, but if it's a larger audience, effective speakers are those who consider the needs of the listeners and adapt to the situation, all right? So let's say that we weren't doing this online, that this was a normal, in-person class, okay? If I'm going to stand up there and just drone on about information, blah, 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 that I had planned to say, and regardless of how I could see, you're falling asleep, you're nodding off, you're on your phone, you're, not looking me in the eye, and I don't adapt to that and think, oh my gosh, I better speed this thing up or move on to something else or try a different way, I am not adapting to the situation. what is listening? All right, there is a difference. And if you're not aware, we're going to explain it here of listening versus hearing. They are different. And there's a very simple difference. Hearing is the physiological process of perceiving sound. So it's the scientific part, the vibration of sound waves on your eardrums and the firing of electrochemical impulses in the brain. You're not going to have memorized that, but just know that hearing means the scientific part, okay? Right now, I'm hearing things here in the room. You know, the air conditioner's running. So I'm hearing it, but I'm not really listening to it. Listening is a process of receiving and interpreting the messages, okay? So in other words, you're actually listening to what I'm saying. You're just not hearing me talk and it's meaning really nothing, but you're paying close attention to and making sense of what you're hearing, okay? And this is an important point. Listening is a skill you can develop. Okay, if you've ever been told, like we said, or told somebody else you're not a good listener, don't worry. That doesn't mean, you know, all hope's lost. You can develop that skill. All right, here are some myths about listening, and this is where we're going to get into the videos. That listening is the same as hearing. We just went over that. Obviously, it's not. That you're a good listener. Probably not. Most of us aren't. So that's probably a myth. And we're going to look at one of the videos here that I have queued up that just talks about being a good listener. It's from Modern Family. Here we go.
Grab the other end of this and help me get it out of here. I have to start setting up the chairs for tonight. Oh, tonight? What's tonight? Are you kidding me? This is what I'm talking about, Mitchell. You never listen when
It's a fundraiser for the Friends of the Third Street Overpass Music Society. 2 harpists are performing, and you're anxious because Andrew, your nemesis from the steering committee, ran the event last year, and you want to upstage him. I was kidding.
Huh.
Cam has it in his head that I don't listen to him, but I do.
Do you, Mitchell? Do you? The doctor called and said Lily's rash is just dry skin. I'm so relieved. What did I just say?
You act like you listen to every single thing that I say, but you don't.
Don't I, Mitchell? Hey, I'm going to the store today. Do you need me to pick anything up for you? Razor blades, saline solution, black socks, and the new issue of Vanity Fair.
Wow, I don't even remember asking for all that. Thank you.
Don't I?
All right, so there is an example of what we're talking about. Stand by, and we're going to get back to the presentation here. Okay. It's important to be a good listener. Effective listening is hard to learn. Is that a myth? Well, actually, yes. It is. You can learn how to be an effective listener. And we're going to go to another video here that shows that.
Okay, when you're selling to women, it is crucial that you listen, Dwight. Also, you want to respect their... Are you listening now?
Yes.
Okay, well, you have to show us.
That's impossible. Listening happens in the ear and in the brain. I mean, some organisms have external hairs that vibrate to indicate auditory stimulation, but unfortunately, our external hairs don't vibrate at all.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
What are you doing?
A little smile and a nod shows that I hear you. Got it?
Kind of.
Nellie, why don't you tell Dwight what we were doing earlier today, and Dwight, you show us that you're listening.
Well, we were in the warehouse where we were discussing the mural that I've commissioned Pam to paint there. We were talking about the colour schemes and the major themes we want to hit. Children of the world coming together, cutting down trees to make paper, but not in a child laboury way.
It's just up and down. Just a regular nod, like a person.
I am a person.
Of
Yes.
course, you're a personal.
Yeah.
We can do this, all right? And then we thought I can't carry on with that face. Look at it, I'm going to get nightmares with that face. I mean, he looks like he is labouring over a stool having just eaten human flesh.
Okay, so you don't really have to go to that extreme to show people that you're listening, but it's a funny way of looking at, you know, that myth and how, yes, you can learn how to be an effective listener. Going down here, good listeners are more intelligent. That's a myth, okay? Not necessarily, but that the more intelligent people are going to be better listeners. We've all probably been in cases where a doctor hasn't been listening to us. And so, you know, there goes that whole idea right there. Older people are better listeners, not necessarily. It really, your age has nothing to do with how good of a listener you are. And women are better listeners than men. That is a myth. Sorry, ladies. But let's take a look down here at what that means. Now, this is a generalization. We don't want it to sound sexist, but it's based on gender. As a generalized note, women tend to communicate through rapport talk. That means language that develops a relationship and exchanges emotional information, okay? So they listen through for the emotion, where men tend to communicate through report talk. So women, it's rapport talk. Men, it's called report talk, which is language meant to exchange information, solution, and problem-solving strategies. So men listen for the information. Women tend to listen for the emotion. And again, it's a generalization, but it's an interesting notation. Okay, what are the purposes of listening? Well, first of all, for appreciation. We listen for enjoyment. That's like, you know, listening to what's on television. And by the way, a good show, if it's a good show on TV, you should be able to listen to it and still enjoy it and not have to watch it. Just a little side note. There's no high degree of cognitive commitment. We sometimes don't have to think a lot, you know, when we listen to something like music, like while we're driving or we're working out. So we listen just to appreciate it. And if you're like me, you have to have your earbuds in most of the time. We listen to comprehend, to understand things, okay? Especially if it's something new, like listening to a lecture. There's critical listening, which is we listen to evaluate a message. Somebody's telling us something and we are, you know, going through the decision-making process of what we think of that, okay? Now this requires the most concentration and cognitive effort and thinking, okay? Are we gonna agree with this or not? This might be a political thing that we hear on television, you know, from the president or such. And then showing our support. We listen to make a speaker feel valued. Here is another clip that I think you're going to enjoy that talks about that point.
I'm sorry, I'm having kind of a rough day.
Yeah, I'm kind of having a rough day myself.
Look, Phil, I need you to take care of dinner for me.
What's wrong?
Oh, Alex ripped Haley's favorite sweater, and now I'm driving around from store to store trying to find the exact same one before Haley finds out.
Don't do that. Just explain to her what happened.
Haley's not gonna understand.
Sure she will.
No, Phil, you don't understand. I'm trying to avoid this turning into a whole big thing.
Then just get her something close. She'll never know the difference.
Phil, could you just take care of dinner, sweetie? That's all I'm asking. That's it.
I'm just saying there's a simpler way to do this.
There is no simpler way. Just make dinner. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, I'm confused. You're saying that if she tells me she has a problem, I'm not supposed to help her?
Not unless she asks for your help.
But if she lets me help her, I can make her problem go away.
That is such a male thing to say.
Well, forgive me for being a man.
Mango or kiwi?
Ooh, kiwi.
When you say, do this or do that, all she's hearing is, I'm smarter than you.
Believe me, she doesn't think that.
She doesn't want you to solve her problems. She just wants you to give her support so that she can solve her problems herself.
Yes, and sometimes she just wants a sympathetic ear.
Whoa, whoa. Maybe it's all the creams, but that just made sense, girlfriends. So if Claire says, I hate getting stuck in traffic, I shouldn't say, maybe you should leave earlier, or don't get on the freeway. I should just say, I know It's so frustrating.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And if she says the waiter I had today was so rude, I shouldn't say maybe you should just order something on the menu for once. I should just say, what a jerk.
Yes.
And if she says, Phil, the TV's driving me crazy, I should just say, I know there is not enough quality programming for women.
No. Turn off the damn TV.
Okay, now I'm confused again.
Doing with my sweater? Oh my God, it's ruined! It was an accident! I knew this would happen, you idiot!
Hey, let's try to get along.
I wish she was never even born! They were trying to make one with a braid!
No, honey, you guys are both pretty smart.
Ah. It's that sweater, huh?
It is. That sweater. And I did everything I can to stop them from fighting.
I don't understand why they can't see how much you love them.
I don't know. Meanwhile, Cheryl has been calling me all day because she's angry I didn't show up.
Doesn't Cheryl have a housekeeper and a nanny? Why does she need so much help?
I know, right?
You work so hard. You do so much.
I do.
Of course you do.
I do. I do. Oh, sweetie, thank you. I really appreciate that.
So Phil kind of learned something there and applied it, which is pretty incredible. Okay, so we're going to take a look at, we're going to move on, but before that, I do want to mention that we saw that, at work. We saw that what it takes to make the speaker feel valued in that case, which was very, very important. And like we said, he took a note of that. I think that's a very telling scene, and you can glean so much from it and really, really learn from that. We all can. Okay, so the purposes of listening, we just went through that. Okay, the ways we listen. Active listening is just what Phil learned how to do. Listen with a high degree of attention to the message. We process it, store, and potentially evaluate the content of the message to reach conclusions. So if we were doing this in class where you could ask questions in person, you might say, so are you telling me that active listening means that I repeat, and make sure that I've heard you correctly so that we're all on the same page? Because we all know this is where communication goes south. This is where it turns bad and sometimes ugly, is when you're just not understanding each other. So this helps a lot to make sure that you do. Passive listening is another way of listening. And these three get a little progressively worse as they go on. Listening without engaging the topic in any noticeable way, okay? We try only to absorb what is said, but we don't engage at all. So let's take a look at that real quick, and you're gonna see an example here, a good one actually, of passive listening.
First, there was PlayStation, aka PS1. Then there's PS2, PS3, and now PS4. And that makes sense. You'd think after Xbox, there'd be Xbox 2. But no. Next came Xbox 360. And now, after 360, comes Xbox One. Why one? Maybe that's how many seconds of thought they put into naming it.
Can you get the butter, please?
However, with the Xbox One, I can control my entire entertainment system using voice commands. Up until now, I've had to use Leonard.
Then get the other one. Pass the butter.
Hang on. I don't feel like you're taking this dilemma seriously.
Fine, Sheldon. You have my undivided attention.
Okay, now, the PS4 is more angular and sleek looking.
No way!
It's true, but the larger size of the Xbox One may keep it from overheating.
You wouldn't want your gaming system to overheat?
No, see, you absolutely would not. And furthermore, the Xbox One now comes with a Kinect included.
Included?
Yes. not sold separately. Although the PS4 uses cool new GDDR5 RAM, while the Xbox One is still using the conventional DDR3 memory.
Why would they still be using DDR3? Are they nuts?
See, that's what I thought. But then they go and throw in an ES RAM buffer.
Oh, wait a second. Who's they?
The Xbox.
You're kidding!
No, I am not. And this ES RAM buffer should totally bridge the 100 gigabit per second bandwidth gap between the two RAM types.
This is a nightmare. How will you ever make a decision?
See, I don't know. What should I do?
Please pass the butter!
Okay, an awesome video to show passive listening. And then she went into, even though in a caricature way, she went into some active listening skills, but in a fun, overly dramatic way. Okay, the third way we listen is the worst, non-listening, which hopefully you're not doing right now. This is where you maintain an appearance of attention without the actual attention. All right. There are 6 forms of non-listening. These may sound familiar. First of all, there is the pseudo-listening, hiding inattention by appearing to actually listen through nonverbal and verbal response. This video shows this really, really well, I think. And you've probably all seen this happen in different situations. Here's an interview, okay, of BTS, and put what might be a language barrier aside and just look at how they're reacting to the information.
We're doing K-pop, right? And K-pop is a great mix of music, music videos and performance, choreographies, and social media and real life content. So I think when you get into our music, for example, you search YouTube and you can look for our chemistry and the contents, and they
look at these guys. You can see how they've just glazed over right here, trying to act like maybe they're listening a little bit, but they're not. They're thinking about anything but what's being said. And my guess is that there are times where you've done that like I have, and you realize as the person's talking to you, you are not listening to a word and you're thinking of something totally different. And then what pops through my head is like, oh my God, I hope they don't ask me a question about what they just said before I go back into the listening, because I'm not gonna know. So you don't want to put yourself in that position. And like we said, the active listening can be learned. So just because you're not doing that now, don't give up. All right, another kind of non-listening is the glazing over, like we talked about. The ambushing. This is where you focus on the weakness of somebody, right? And ignore the strengths of their position. You might see that in a political speech too, or confrontation. Somebody in office is trying to say something and then the person listening goes with that little piece that didn't make sense and blows that out of proportion. Prejudging, we think about what the person's going to say before we even really listen to what they're saying, okay? We do selective listening. You've probably heard this term or used it, where you only hear what you want to hear from what somebody says, okay? And that is selective listening. Let's say that your parents are asking you to do something, or your significant other, and you take from that, one little piece that you wanted to, that made you feel good. That's selective listening. Advising is probably the worst. Interrupting a person to offer suggestions and opinions because you think you're going to be helpful when you weren't even asked for it. That's a really, really bad listening quality to have. There is never a reason, unless it's dire, to interrupt somebody from talking as much as you want to. And don't wait for somebody to get done so that you can jump right in. Okay, here are some guidelines for dialogic listening, which are guidelines to help you listen better from a communication standpoint, from a speaking standpoint. First, we're going to look at one here. that gives an example of a bad listener, which is our last video. This is the last slide on this too. So here we go. It's another from Big Bang.
Play.
What are you doing?
Trying to use a Jedi mind trick to control Stephen Hawking. Play. Ugh. He must be wearing a tinfoil hat or something.
I did a bad thing.
Does it affect me?
No.
Then suffer in silence. Play. Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking.
Penny started taking a class. She wrote a paper. She didn't want me to read it. I went behind her back. I read it anyway.
Stephen Hawking hates me.
I don't know what to do. The paper's terrible. But if I tell her, she'll know that I read it, and she'll get really mad.
I was beating him so bad he doesn't want to be friends anymore. Why does everyone love me except Stephen Hawking?
Is it possible we're having two different conversations?
How would I know? I'm not listening to you.
Hang on. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Chess clock. We each get 5 minutes to talk about our problems. We'll take turns. Each turn will consist of a statement and a helpful response from the friend. Begin.
Okay, we're not going to go into all of that, but, and I actually wanted to stop it sooner, but truth be told, I wasn't listening. So let's go on to what are some of the guidelines for dialogic listening. First, stop talking and listen. Next, make a listening goal. Or make listening a goal, okay? So that you're really cognizant of it. And you can do this, it's possible. Remove the distractions around you so that you're forced to focus on listening. And listen for ideas from people. What can I learn from this person? Listen for the nonverbals as well as the content. What that means is, as we've talked about, nonverbals are involved in the spoken word, all right? How loud you are, what your tone is, are you saying it with attitude, are you being pleasant? Those are all nonverbals. So listen to those as well as what the person's saying. You're gonna learn a lot and through listening in that way, and you're gonna be able to communicate better. Focus on the agreement, not the disagreement. Let's try to find our similarities. We've mentioned this before, then what we don't have in common, okay? And there you have it. So thanks everybody, that is listening. Well, don't forget to do your notes. Don't forget to fill all that out. And thank you to everybody who has filled out the questionnaire after the notes. About the videos. That's going to be very, very helpful with research we're doing. And please continue to do that with this video and the future ones. We'll see you next time. Bye.